What's up, my friend? Abby here, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Abby, where I answer your writing questions and help you make your story matter. In case you're new around here and you're not sure how this works, here's the deal. You ask me questions and I show up here on YouTube once a month to answer those questions, and there are two ways to submit questions to the show. The first way is to hit the join button below this video, get on the inside of the YouTube community, post your question in the Ask Abby post on the community. Second way is to join my Patreon and get inside the inner circle. So to do that, you go to patreon.com/AbbieEmmons, get inside the inner circle group and post your question in there. Just make sure you hashtag it Ask Abby so that I see it. A lot of great questions came in this month and I'm super excited to answer them. So roll that intro and let's get into it. Why does your story matter? Good question. What if I told you that there's a science behind every great story? I don't just teach you how to write. I teach you how to change the world with your story and make your author dreams come true. Okay, first question comes from Linda. I have a good basis for a story, engaging characters, multiple plot lines, and a decent story arc, but I don't think the stakes are high enough. Any suggestions for ratcheting up the stakes? It is a historical novel, so I can't go too crazy, i.e. life or death stakes would be implausible. Thank you for your excellent content. Okay, I love this question because stakes, raising the stakes in your story is not a matter of creating more perilous or scarier or life or death scenarios for your characters, okay? The stakes don't have to be do or die for us to care. What matters the most is establishing what the stakes mean for your characters. So when I want to raise the stakes for my characters, I don't ask myself, what can I make happen to raise the stakes? Instead, I ask myself, how can I make what's already happening matter more to my characters? Like I always say, external conflict is about what happens, internal conflict is about why it matters. And that's why you can watch a movie where you have all kinds of exciting, perilous, high stakes, life or death scenarios going on with car chases and exploding spaceships. But if you don't care about the characters, then you don't care about what's happening. Okay, the high stakes mean nothing. Conversely, you could watch a movie or read a book where literally nothing perilous or life or death or threatening is happening to these characters, but you care so much about the characters and what the stakes mean to them that it's way more exciting than exploding spaceships. So focus on showing us why what's happening matters specifically to these characters based on their fears and their misbeliefs and their desires. It could be something extremely simple and even mundane to most people. What matters is showing us through the lens of your character's perception why this is important to them. So don't focus so much on adding more to raise the stakes. Focus more on taking what you already have and either embellishing it or making it matter more to the characters based on their internal conflict. Next question comes from Cassandra. So I've been binge watching your videos on the 3-act story structure and I'm finding it hard to use because I've always let the words write themselves, and then I'll see what works and what doesn't and create an outline from that. The question I have is that always a bad way to write? Would that take away from the story? No, it is not bad at all to write without a story structure. If you feel confident that you can write a satisfying story where your characters have to face internal conflicts and external conflicts and ultimately change as a result of their journey, then don't feel like you need to follow a structure. The 3-act story structure can also be helpful just as a reference and not necessarily as a guide that you are constantly following. So by that I mean maybe you'll glance at it once or twice while you're in the development phase and just kind of get a feel for the flow of a character arc, a positive character arc, or any character arc really, and then you go off on your own, put the structure aside and just let your creativity flow and see where that takes you. It's totally fine. As long as your characters are always facing conflicts that matter to them and they continue to grow and learn as a result of their journey. That's what makes a story satisfying, okay? I've seen a lot of different story structures done before, and a lot of them are great. A lot of them are very successful and are able to sustain powerful character journeys. And that's really all the structure is there for. It is there to work as a structure to hold up your character's journey. So many different structures work for this. Many different structures have been used and have been successful. So I wouldn't say that the 3-act story structure is the only one that works. It's the one that I find to be the most universal across most stories that I personally have fallen in love with. That's why I love it so much, and that's why I use it a lot, even just mentally. At this point, I don't even have to like look at it because it's so much ingrained in everything I do that I intuitively write with that flow in mind. I don't even realize I'm doing it until I take a step back and I'm like, oh yeah, there's the 3-act story structure. I can see it now. But other structures work too, and sometimes you intuitively know the flow. You intuitively know the climactic moments and the descending action moments, and you have a good sense of that already. So trust yourself and don't be afraid to adapt it to suit your needs. Another thing that I would recommend to you is my video on scene cards, which I give out a template in that video, and that template is really more like a guide to writing strong sequences of cause and effect that make your story, that give your story momentum going forward. It helps you to keep your characters on the right path, to keep them on that journey of change without concerning yourself so much about the big overarching structure, so that you continue to keep the audience's interest without following a story structure to the letter. So check out that video, I think it will help. Okay, next question is from Apollo. Yay, hey Abbie, new fan here, love your stuff, I've learned so much from you. I'm so glad. Do you have any advice for writing traumatic events without it seeming like you're glorifying abuse or trauma? The only videos on this I can find basically tell writers not to write this stuff, but as someone who has gone through it, I have an important story of overcoming adversity to tell, but I would not want anyone to get the wrong idea. Is there a way to keep from crossing a line? I want to empower my readers to know their strength, not scar them. Thank you in advance. Okay, so first of all, most characters who are dealing with any kind of serious internal conflict have had some traumatic experiences in their past. So it's not that you want to avoid writing traumatic scenes, it's that you want to make sure you are framing them in the correct light. To me, when something comes off as glorified in a story, it's always when the characters never really come to the realization that the experience they had was actually toxic and destructive. If it's okayed or kind of dismissed as being not so bad, that could potentially contradict the message that you're going for. Another thing I would recommend for writing content like this is see how much you can say with as little description as possible. This is something that really impresses me as a reader, is when an author is able to paint a clear picture of what's happening or what happened in the past without any disturbing or potentially triggering details. It takes some creativity, but it is definitely doable, and I also recommend doing this because it makes your book more accessible to a wider range of readers. Beta readers can also help you to make sure that your themes and takeaways are clear and aligned with your intentions for your story. So get feedback from your trusted friends who understand your intentions with this story. They might help you a lot. And if you need help finding beta readers or figuring out who are the people in your life who are potentially great beta readers, check out this video I made on finding beta readers and what to ask them. Okay, last question is from Daniel. I'm trying to generate thematic summaries working from scene summaries and character arcs with heavy reliance on your scene template, I could use direction/advice on how to create overall summaries from the emerging story as it takes shape. So, thematic summaries can basically be broken down into two parts: cause and effect. External conflict clashes with your character, and their internal conflict and forces them to take action towards their goal, and they either succeed or fail. They either get closer to their goal or further away. Each scene makes the next scene inevitable. And at the end of each scene, something should have changed. So it's great to make summaries of this and really dig down into your themes, like you were saying, and figure out why everything matters, because that's really what theme is. It's why it matters. It's the takeaway. It's the deeper meaning. It's the big idea. It's the reason why you care as the author to write this story. And that to me is the most important thing to remind yourself of while you're writing. You have to see why each and every scene matters, because if you don't know why it matters, the reader won't know why it matters. So like you said, in the scene card template, there are prompts to help you to find the theme, find the underlying deeper conflict, the deeper meaning behind what's happening and the character's decision-making process. So you can either use the prompts in that card, or you could write your own summary completely independent of that card, based on each scene, based on a section of your book, or based on the entirety of the book. So let me show you like a short and sweet example of this. We're going to use the story of Icarus. When Icarus escapes, his father warns him to not fly too close to the sun, but Icarus is exhilarated by his newfound sense of freedom and rebels against his father, flying higher and learning too late the mistake he's made. He falls into the sea and drowns. So you want something short and to the point, something that includes your themes, but still has a central focus on what's happening. You want that perfect balance of what's happening and why it matters. And I find that when I sketch out my scenes beforehand, or at least a brief thematic summary of what this scene contains or what this sequence contains, that helps me so much to stay on track and to understand why it matters to me, to the characters, to the reader, to the world, but also gets me excited to continue writing the story. So hopefully that helps. Okay, boom, that's it. That's all for this episode of Ask Abby. Thank you guys so much for submitting these questions. If you want to submit a question to the show, you know what to do. Hit the join button below this video, get inside the community on YouTube and submit your question there, or go to patreon.com/AbbieEmmons and get inside the Inner Circle group and post your question there. Just make sure you hashtag it AskAbbie so that I see it, and maybe next time I will answer your question. Smash that like button if you liked this video, and be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I post writing videos every single Wednesday, and I would love to have you here in the community. Until next week, my friend, rock on. The brutal truth about traditional publishing is that traditional publishing houses sell books. That is the product that they carry, and they see it as a product, which is not a bad thing.
Right.
So when an author